more about this issue. And Dewa Mavhinga is the Southern Africa Director at Human Rights Watch. He joins us now from London. Thank you so much for being with us. So this report says that South Africa is failing victims, which it is, but poor South Africans, accused of xenophobia, say it's the system that's failing them, that while they're languishing in poverty, foreigners are able to come into the country and get both high-skilled and low-skilled work that they need. I mean, is there some truth to that? Are there victims really on both sides?
Well, I think the bottom line is that no one should take the law into their own hands. If there are complaints, if there are issues that need to be resolved, it must be for the state authorities to ensure that the law is followed. So it's not that if you have a complaint in a street, you take the law into your own hands, commit violence, and vent out and think that it is appropriate. It is not. But in South Africa, the biggest problem has been a failure by the police and other law enforcement agencies to thoroughly investigate, to prevent these attacks, and to ensure that they are not repeated. So as a result, we see repeated waves of violence with impunity, with no accountability, and with no protection for these vulnerable groups of foreign nationals.
And now, why do you think the police and the politicians do kind of allow this behavior to happen, and then they're not punishing it? Because some do argue there are political reasons for it, that this is the support base of the ruling party, and if they start cracking down on their criminal behavior, they might suffer at the polls.
Well, yes, there is that unwillingness to act on xenophobia on the assumption that it has got political power to scapegoat and blame foreign nationals and to let locals vent out and take out their frustration on foreign nationals. So it's scapegoating, yes, and this is why we have also seen in our investigations that some political leaders have often recklessly incited xenophobic violence, and they have not been held accountable for their actions as well.
Right. There are other elements, though, as well, that among certain wealthier South Africans, they actually prefer hiring non-South Africans as, domestics or gardeners, security guards as well, for example, because there's this perception somehow that these immigrants will work harder. And I've even heard them say, well, they're a little more trustworthy than some of the locals because they want to believe that the locals are somehow even attached to the criminal gangs that run in South Africa. So is anything being done to address that kind of discrimination among those who do employ the Black South Africans that perhaps are overlooking them for the jobs that they might be qualified for?
Well, not much has been done. And again, at the level of policy making and the laws, there are no mechanisms to address these kinds of discrimination. And the South African Parliament should be looking at these things to say, how do you ensure that there is protection and you deal with the root causes of xenophobic sentiment and violence, and then you can actually ensure that you prevent and protect everyone. But at the moment, it is a free-for-all. The communities are doing as they wish. They're taking the law into their own hands, and the authorities are folding their hands and looking the other way.
Right. Explain what obligation South Africa actually has, though, as a nation to accept a certain number, of refugees and migrants that come into the country. They do have an international responsibility to also protect fellow Africans that are fleeing war and conflict. And those are the same ones that often end up in the communities where they are attacked under this xenophobic phenomenon.
Oh, yes. South Africa has legal obligations to protect everyone within its territory and to ensure that no one is attacked without accountability. And a huge number of asylum seekers and refugees has flocked to South Africa. There is integration in communities, but the challenge is that there is no protection when these people are in these informal settlements where the poorest of the poor live. And so that lack of protection becomes the challenge. The UN Refugees Agency says South Africa is a good example of not confining refugees in camps like is done in other countries. But the challenge is that when they are in communities, they are not protected.
Right.
South Africa is failing on its obligations.
Okay. Dewa Mavhinga, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us from London. We appreciate it.